Greetings, wondrous people. It is agreeable to see you. Welcome to the Happy Creepy Clown Room, a podcast where I just go off the top of my head most of the time. Today I think we're going to dive into something a lot deeper. Not sure how it's going to go. I've been reading a lot about and thinking a lot about this subject, and it's kind of getting to a point where I want to talk about it. I'm borrowing from a few different authors, journalists, doctors, YouTube pages, podcasts, and things of that nature. I'm going to talk a lot about simulation theory, or the simulation conspiracy theory, and the possibility that we are all living in a simulation, and that last year and probably this year and maybe every year you've ever been alive has been a simulation. I think the person who's controlling my simulation might be a little bit broken, a little bit devious. He doesn't have very much of a sense of humor. I come to you early on a Sunday morning. It's 6 a.m. I've been in the habit the last maybe, 2 years of waking up really, really early. Most of it has to do with having a 7-year-old. As soon as she started school, getting up early became a thing that I had to do because we live a good hour away from her school. And driving there in LA traffic is quite a bunch of shit. It sucks. So we got to get started early. And then I started Uber driving, and I found out that starting at 5 a.m. driving really works out good for making money, getting people to work, getting people to school, getting people where they have to go really early. But that's a whole subject for a different podcast. We'll go into that another time. Today, I want to talk about the whole simulation theory. And, is the world a simulation? Like the whole universe, as each of us perceives it. It can be argued that all we know and everything that we see and hear is only there when we're looking at it, when it's in our field of view. Nothing exists outside of the now. The time and the space that we inhabit is the only thing that there is, and the only thing there ever was. Any other time that you think about is either past, it's gone, or future, it hasn't happened yet. There are scientists that are testing to see if we are living in a simulation. Elon Musk is even funding work in this field, and he believes that there is a 1 in a billion chance that we are living in a simulated reality. Today I'm going to see if I can, in my layman's terms, or some things, like I said, that I've borrowed from YouTube and so on, I'm going to try to break down the science and the math behind the simulation hypothesis. I've read a bunch of this stuff, and I've gotten a lot of this stuff out of books and papers, so I'm definitely not coming up with all of this. The things in between what I'm reading are just my general filler, but I'm also going to take a look at how much computer power is actually needed to simulate a universe. Is humanity being simulated as 2D beings to save on computer power that then get projected in 3D? And could we create a simulation for humanity that allows us to travel further into outer space? If you think that simulations are possible, and I think that simulations are possible, then it's almost certain that we are in one. People have been questioning for centuries what is truth and what is illusion. From Plato's allegory of the cave in the Western world to Zhang Zhu's butterfly dream in the East. Plato lived between 428 and 348 BC. And he tells the tale of people that are kept in a cave, and they grow up seeing only the shadows of other people on the wall. For them, the shadows are the real world. And then one day, one of the cave people are taken outside, and they see how the outside world is so much more real than the world in the cave. Pretty soon, they come back to the cave and they try to free the others, but they're unable to see in the dark. So they're treated as this outsider that came back from the forbidden place. The people inside the cave think it is dangerous to go outside, and they refuse to go with him. The cave represents the people who believe that knowledge comes from what we can see and hear. Plato said that true knowledge comes from philosophical reasoning. Zhang Zhu, a Chinese philosopher who lived in the 4th century BC, dreamed that he was a butterfly. But the butterfly did not know that he was Zhang Zhu. Suddenly he woke up, and he was Zhang Zhu, But now, how can he be sure that he's not the butterfly dreaming that he is a person? As both dreaming and waking feel real, how can we tell which one is true? Move forward to 1977. That's a big jump, but we're going to go back up to 1977. Phillip Kindred. He created the stories for Blade Runner and Minority Report. He argued that we are living in a computer-programmed reality. The only clues we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in reality occurs, such as when we have an overwhelming impression that we are living in the present, like déjà vu. That kind of goes to the Matrix movie from the 90s when Keanu turns away and sees the black cat, and then he sees the cat again. And they ask him, they're like, wait a minute, was it the same cat? Or was it, did you think you saw the same cat? Because they were all talking and they said that, when you see something like déjà vu, once we're inside of this, that means that they've changed something. So back to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is another person who questions our reality. I kind of question Elon Musk's reality, but he's quite important, mainly because he has money. But he's questioning our reality, using the development of video games as an example of why we are living in a simulation. Elon says that we are clearly on a trajectory to soon have video games that are indistinguishable from reality. Those games will be played on any console or personal computer, and there would be possibly billions of such computers. He wonders what the levels above us would look like, saying that the simulation is probably running in a boring world. When you look at a video game or a movie, it is condensed to a version of what is most interesting about life. Most likely, if we're living in a simulation, it is very boring outside of the simulation. And the further down the number of simulations you go, the more interesting it becomes. So, what is the likelihood that we are living in a simulation? There's a doctor whose book I'm going to quote a little bit, Dr. Nick Bostrom, and he's from the University of Oxford. His link will be in the description there. I've been listening to this book on Audible, and it's quite amazing. But his work in part is funded by Elon Musk. He's created the foundational theory of the simulation argument. He presents 3 scenarios. 1, the human species will go extinct before creating a simulation of another universe. So that kind of stops us right there. But number 2, advanced civilizations that are capable of creating simulations are not interested in creating simulations of their evolutionary history or a variation of it. Number 3, the probability that we are living in a simulation is close to 1, as we are almost certainly living in a simulation. Dr. Bostrom says that since little is known, we must assume for now that each one has an equal likelihood. His book is called Superintelligence: Paths, Dangers, and Strategies. Again, the link will be in the description for the Audible book. If we are able to create a simulation, then the chances that we are living in one greatly increases. To figure this out, we just need to take a look at video games and try to predict how soon in the future we could be playing and living in virtual worlds to where the people can't tell the difference from the real one. We've gone from playing Pong, which is 2 blocks and a dot, to today's hyper-realistic games with millions of players, and all of this took place in just the last 50 years. Even if the rate of video game advancement drops by 1,000 times from what it is today, then imagine it is about 10,000 years in the future when we will have full universe simulations, which is really nothing in the evolutionary scale. But a lot of people believe that humanity will reach that point much sooner, when the growth of technology becomes uncontrollable, and then human civilization will change in ways we cannot predict. Like being able to create powerful video game simulations that even the artificial intelligence living within them will feel like the simulation is their reality. And then the AI inside of the simulation would also create games and virtual worlds, designing multiple layers of simulations. There could be hundreds, thousands, or even 1 million simulated universes. And if only one of the 1 million universes is the real world, the base reality, then the probability that we are in the base reality is 1 in 1 million. So if we as humans are able to create a simulation, then the likelihood that we are in one increases. the odds that we are in the base reality is like 1 in a billion. A little less of a crazy thinker and, a realist in this world would be an astronomer. His name's David Kipping, and he's broken it down into 2 different possibilities. Either there are simulations or there aren't simulations. And there's one base reality. Here's a little bit more on the boring reading. In mathematics, when there is no information to decide the likelihood of something being true, each is considered equally likely. This is known as the principle of indifference. So in this case, there is a 50% chance there are no simulations and a 50% chance that there are. But even if the latter is true, that there are many simulations and one base reality, there is still the possibility that we are in the base reality, and are the first civilization to create a simulation. This means that the probability of us living in the real world, the base reality, is now slightly higher.
What is he talking about?
What is he talking about?
Again, here's some more information that I've, read and sort of assimilated to the way I do things, which is, again, I'm no philosopher, I'm no scholar, but I can read and I can regurgitate.
That's not the usual way I do things, but sometimes you got to abandon your principles and do what's right.
This is all basically the technological version of the philosophical idea called Solipsism, which in a nutshell means that the self is all that can be known to exist. There's a NASA engineer named Thomas Campbell, and him and his guys are trying to test to see if there's actually a simulation. And they're kind of coming to the fact that if there was a simulation, it wouldn't simulate everything at once, so that it could save on those computing resources, because if it tried to do everything at one time, it would need this huge quantum computer that wouldn't even be feasible. So back to that philosophical idea of solipsism, it's the only thing that we can simulate, or that we would be simulating, would be what we see and what we hear. Everything else would be stopped. It wouldn't exist. Kind of that old thing, like if a tree falls in the woods, does it really make a sound if there's nobody around to hear it? Do we really know? Because there's nobody there. So we can't ask the animals that it fell on or fell near to figure that out. Our mind says, yeah, that it definitely makes a sound. Everything does. The world exists outside of what we see and hear. Wouldn't you say that's kind of selfish and weird to think that the only thing that exists is what we see and what we hear?
That is the only thing that is keeping us alive.
That's the whole idea, is it's possible, so we think about it. So when the NASA scientists do this experiment, they use quantum physics, and they use a sequence of mirrors and lasers.
Smoke and mirrors.
And smoke and mirrors. And basically they try to see if the light that they shine in there, the lasers, actually does the same thing all the time. If we are in a simulation, the light should behave abnormally and clearly show that we are in a simulation. But the problem with this is the test takes many years to figure out, and they're trying to figure out if this would happen, if anything would change, and it takes decades for them to see if anything's changing. But then they give the excuse that, well, if it is changing over that much time, it's the simulation correcting itself. We go down into nuclear physicists that are doing this stuff, and that's why it's gonna take a long time, and they're pretty much to the point where they're like, yeah, this is bullshit. There's no way. This is just not possible. Come on, guys. That's what they're saying to everybody who's thinking there's something like, come on, guys. It's fucking Elon Musk. What the hell, guys? He's just a rich fucking nitwit. He pays for people to be smart for him. I mean, yeah, he's a very smart guy. Believe me, he's a very smart guy. It's pretty obvious. But he's not a physicist.
Well, there is no way. I'm not that smart.
He's not a quantum scientist. That's why he pays these guys that are to do this stuff. He pays the real eggheads to do this stuff. And I'm not casting shade on, a real egghead. I wish I was an egghead. But, there comes a point when it's like, yeah, really? Come on. Elon needs to fucking back up, all right? There's another author, William Poundstone, and he wrote a book called Doomsday Calculation. And it points out a potential hole in the simulation argument when he writes, when we make books and movies or video games, they're usually made within a few hundred years of our current day. He argues that a simulation would be close in time to that of the simulator's world. In this case, our simulation should have widespread simulation technology and be in a futuristic era. As we do not have this technology, we would be more of an ancient civilization and would be an unlikely choice to simulate. But there's other people that argue that this is just making assumptions about what an advanced civilization would do with a simulator. They may have completely different preferences to our own. There is no indication that this universe wasn't just created to be artifacts and byproducts of a simulation. They might just be testing some hypothetical scenario.
Believe me, this is so hypothetical.
So there's another nuclear physicist named Silas Bean, and he's been trying to test if we're in simulation too. And he believes that we're going to be able to simulate an entire universe within 500 years. And it could be much sooner than that, depending on the number of simulated people within the universe. Again, it's going to depend on the power of our computing and the computers that we're able to make. But with quantum computing, we're coming close.
How close? How close?
So here's some more boring numbers. To replicate the human brain, a quantum computer would need to be able to compute things between 10 to the 14th and 10 to the 17th power. Right now, computers can do about 10 to the power of 9. So to save on computing power, what might be happening, this is all so theoretical and so deeply weird, is that everything is simulated in 2D and then projected in 3D, just like a 3D movie or a hologram. There's another very smart guy named R.J. Bradbury, and he has a paper called Matroska Brains. And he estimates that a computer with the mass of a large planet could process 10 to the 42nd power of operations per second. But to power such a computer, you're going to need a Dyson sphere around the sun. Obviously that's not going to be possible anytime soon. Why would anybody even try to consider something like that? Right? We're like a pea-sized little tiny marble next to the sun. We can't even travel off this planet we basically go to the moon, and we can go to Mars maybe, but a sphere around our sun? Come on, guys. This is like, I guess if you want to think that way, you need to think big, and that's thinking big.
We gotta think big, guys.
So, I guess you're thinking Star Trek style. Anyway, I don't know how much further I want to go on this. Probably not much, because again, this is pretty deep and this is pretty scientific and kind of boring. I think it's a little bit more interesting to do some basic reading or basic research or just YouTube videos on Gnosticism. That's kind of the basic belief that we are living in a simulation, but probably not a computer simulation, but that this reality that we all live in here isn't the only one. And we find that out when we die.
What happens when we die?
These thought processes have been going on since the beginning of time. Like with Zhang Zhu and with Plato. They've been thinking about this since way before we've had computers. It's kind of the whole idea of an alternate reality.
An alternate reality.
So I urge you to do some reading about that. I've come across Miguel Conner and his podcast, the Eon Byte Gnostic Radio. I'm going to include links to all these things down in the description. So check it out. Wow, I'm just going to take a breath because I feel like I just dove down a rabbit hole, a weird one. And, I feel like I'm even in over my own head. So take a sip of your coffee, chill out. Right now, In my space, it's early on a Sunday morning, very early. I got to go do easy stuff like listen to church. I'm a sound guy at a church in Covina. It's pretty simple. 2 churches come in there. One is a non-denominational Christian church. One is a non-denominational Argentinian church. So the first half of it, I understand. The second half of it is in Spanish, and I get the idea, but I don't understand about 90% of what's going on. And I can just zone out and not have to worry about much because I don't really pay much attention to the Gospels. And, I have nothing to say about that stuff. Maybe it's for another podcast. It's a good chance it is. I'd rather keep this light, kind of funny.
Kind of fun, huh? Now you know how it feels.
Put in some more wacky music clips. Some more clips from movies. I really like doing that. It's pretty fun. I want to make sure that I have enough to piece together something interesting, but not too goddamn long, because I don't want... There's no way no one's going to sit here for 45 minutes or an hour and listen to me. And if you do sit there for 45 minutes and listen to me, I want to hear from you. I want to hear why you like to listen to me.
I don't have to listen to you anymore. Yes, you do.
I'm going to start putting links to basic surveys and things that I'd like for any of my followers or people that I move, or people that like to listen to me. I'd like you to fill out some of the surveys and questionnaires, and I'll read them. I'll read them on future podcasts. I'd like to do shout outs for you and talk about what you people think.
What does it take to make you people want to join in?
So I need to get some more ideas, and I want to get some more people, and I'm going to do some more interviews with people. So please click subscribe, follow the links in the descriptions there, look at my other things, subscribe to my other places, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. I'm going to even put links up there. Most of the stuff I do on TikTok recently has been dollhouses and miniatures and things like that, because for some reason I decided I was going to do artwork and do miniatures. Probably because my daughter likes playing with dollhouses.
You know what I love? Dollhouse furniture.
But I very quickly found out that spending hours on making something minuscule that she's just going to drop on the floor and step on is kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go and buy that and just hand it to you, because, she's not going to really appreciate the, oh, look, it's a miniature and it's perfect and it's real. And my dad made this, until she's much older. I like doing it. It's a place to go. It takes up a lot of time. It's somewhat fulfilling, but it has its place. And I think it's kind of to me, it feels like the skill that I want to have when I'm an old man, and I want to just sit there and do things real slow and small and intricate, and I'll probably be too old to see it, and my hands will be shaking. But to me, it feels like something I would do as an old man. Another project I took on a couple months ago was restoring an old pump organ. It seemed like a great idea at the time, and then I started taking it apart, and this piece of wood and levers is from the 1800s, and it's very complicated, very old, very dirty. Things are breaking on it. It's hugely time-consuming. It's very expensive to replace everything. It takes really a good deal of craftsmanship, which I have a small bit of experience in, and it takes a huge amount of money. So again, it's, to me, something that I would do when I'm old, and after my daughter is grown, and once I've retired and I don't have to drive for Uber every day. So I'm going to let Bozo play you out, and you all make it a good week. Till next time.